The investigation into one of Brookline's most prestigious private schools over accusations of illegal discrimination. As you may have seen in the Globe this week, the U.S. Attorney's Office is currently looking into the Park School's practices after a Brookline couple said their 5-year-old daughter was illegally denied admission solely because of a spinal cord injury that's paralyzed her arms and legs since birth. Dawn and Justin Oates tried to enroll their kid, Harper, in the Park School in 2015, where Justin went himself and where their 2 other children were attending pre-K at the time. Harper was ultimately denied entrance despite the fact that her parents say she's at least a year ahead of her peers in her cognitive abilities, and the Oates family's offer to send Harper to the school with a full-time aide. In a statement, the school said it, quote, engaged in an open, good faith discussion with the Oates family about how Harper could thrive, and after much careful and thoughtful deliberation, serious concerns remain that the Park School could not meet Harper's educational needs. The school went on to say, Harper required additional accommodations that would have fundamentally altered our educational model. Harper was ultimately accepted into another nearby private school, and this past August, the family set up a meeting with the new head of school at Cynthia Harmon after the previous head stepped down a few months before. The Oates family made 3 requests: that the school add a disability non-discrimination policy to the school's website, make the playground accessible to students with disabilities, and that the school dismiss its admissions director. The couple says Harmon never got back to them, which Harmon says is not true. According to the school's statement, the head of school attempted to follow up with the Oates family multiple times after the meeting with them last summer, but received no response. Dawn Oates joins me now. Dawn, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Can I just be clear?
Sure.
You never initiated anything with the U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office reached out to you and said, we're looking into this thing.
That's right. A third party contacted the U.S. Attorney and shared our story, and the U.S. Attorney's Office called us and asked if we would be willing to talk to them a little bit further, and we did.
And there's no question, obviously, they admit they denied Harper admission because of her disability. You think
Sure.
It's illegal. What are you looking for even now? Just those 3 things, or are you looking for something else at the end of this?
The number one thing that's important to understand is that this is a situation that's not about any type of restitution. This is about raising awareness of a law that was violated that was intended to protect the civil rights, and in this case, our daughter. And so we want ultimately for this to never happen again, and we like Park to take corrective measures so that they come into compliance with ADA and no family should have to go through what we went through.
How does this feel to you? I mean, this is through no fault. It isn't because of what your kid said or did. It's because something beyond her and your control.
Look,
how does this feel personally?
It's crushing. It's really devastating. Our child was born this way. She was injured at birth, and this is a situation that, you have to imagine that if my child, who is cognitively on par with her peers and very intelligent, if she were typical and typically developing and she were injured, say, in a car accident, how would the school community treat that child? Would she be kicked out and be sent to another school?
Is she old enough to understand what's going on?
She's definitely aware of the situation. Cognitively, I think that we're sort of in a period of time where we try to protect her from this, as we protect all of our kids from it. But
your twins are a year older, right?
They're 7 and Harper's 5.
Okay, and they were in the Park School, and after this whole mess, you pulled them out, and they're all going, what's it called, Dexter Southfield?
They're at Dexter Southfield.
How'd they feel about leaving the school and their friends because of their sister?
Right. With any transition kids are going to go through, they're going to have some period of adjustment, but it would be like moving to a different town or moving to a different school within the same district. They have all new friends, new facility. They ultimately meet new friends, and they're thriving now. So
I should have said, by the way, I read their statement a second ago. We invited the Park School to join us here tonight, and they sent us the statement instead. As I said before, you offered to pay for an aide full-time who would accompany Harper, and they go on to say it would fundamentally alter our educational model. Could you explain to me what that means?
It's hard to explain. I did ask Park School to explain that to us. They were never really able to give us an answer because we in fact, told them that we would pay for and provide every accommodation that Harper needed. And so for them to say there were accommodations that they couldn't provide, well, that's irrelevant because we never asked them to provide anything. We came to the table willing to do everything needed. We asked them for a school, a classroom, and a teacher.
And when you applied to Dexter Southfield, it was like this from the Globe, right? Why were there did they raise any of the same issues that the Park School did?
Dexter Southfield gave our daughter the same thoughtful consideration that they gave our other 2 children. And it was pretty obvious from Harper's academic readiness and her personality that she could add a lot of value to that school and to the school community.
You know, this is part of your life, I assume. I know the Park School is one nightmare you have to deal with, but my guess is this is not the only part of your life where you have to deal with this kind of discrimination, or I guess alleged discrimination.
Well, I think, Jim, you know, the Americans with Disabilities Act has been around over 20 years, and so you'd think we have come a long way, but in this particular situation, I think that, you know, it was a surprise to us that this is how things unfolded, and I have to guess that other people in our situation are similar, going through the same things, even with all the advances that have been made. I think the important thing is that people understand that private schools are bound by the same federal law that protects people with disabilities, just as public schools are.
After this story went public, did you hear from other families who were living through a similar situation?
Yeah,
you did?
I actually, it's funny you say that. The past 24 hours, I've heard from at least 6 families who have been at different schools, who have been involved in similar situations. Very shocking to me, because in this situation, especially because it's a private school, you tend to feel alone. There's some things that you really, you know, people don't really want to talk about, and would that affect your chances to go to another school? There's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of privacy, and I respect that. At the same time, there are people who are afraid to speak out, afraid to raise awareness of an issue that who knows how large this issue is, but I think it's just really interesting that people are starting to have that courage to speak up so that we can have change in the future, so that other families don't have to go through what our family did.
Speaking of change in the future, you and your husband formed this thing called Play Brigade. And I was reading a story from a couple of years ago when you formed it, and you can tell what it is. The most important thing I've heard you say, and I'm going to paraphrase you and you'll correct me if I get it wrong, this is not about accessibility, which is what the law mandates. It's about inclusivity. You don't want separate but equal. You want your kid to be included, subject to whatever her needs are, in the things that every other kid is doing, right?
Sure, and you know, the difference between the school that we had hoped to go to versus the school we're at now is that Dexter Southfield has an inclusion-minded philosophy.
Which means what?
To me, that was, they feel that Harper is very beneficial to their community as a whole, that everyone stands to learn something from everyone who's different, whatever that difference may be. I mean, it's the cornerstone of diversity. And so if Dexter Southfield has thanked us and said, you know, we're so glad that you're here, you know, that's really the answer that we had hoped that Park would give us. But guess what? We've found a school community that embraces diversity in its truest definition, and that definition doesn't just include race, gender, sexual orientation. It includes differences in ability, and that works for us.
We only have 15 seconds. This Play Brigade thing, the notion is to have inclusivity in that on playgrounds and in play areas,
recreation, and sports.
And that still exists.
That's so everybody can participate and belong. Yep, and we do a lot of activity in the city of Boston and around to make sure that people are part of the community.
Great. Good luck to you and your kid.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure to meet you, Donna. Really
appreciate it.